Well, thank you for coming on to Let's Talk ID, Henry. We've been in correspondence for a while, just internet, correspondence. Sometimes I feel like you can know someone before you even meet them in person. It's kind of weird how the world works now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So yeah, Henry, you currently work for your first out of university position at Schneider?
Yeah, Schneider Electric. Yeah.
Schneider Electric. What is that kind of role? You know, what is your day to day in that role?
So I started there, or started here, as an intern, um, out of my third year in uni. Um, and Schneider in Australia, they own the brand Clipsal,
Yep.
which is a pretty household name in Australia. So at least in this part of the business, in this side of the world, we do mostly work on the Clipsal like range, which is mostly around like light switches, power sockets, some smart home technology as well.
Oh, cool.
It's mainly around the um, electrical side of that home,
Mm,
where where you're trying to save energy and stuff like that.
yeah.
That's the main thing with Schneider. They're like an energy business almost, where they design products in order for you to save energy and know what you're doing with your energy.
Mm,
Um, so my day to day was mostly helping out on some smaller tasks, like converting products that have been given by engineers into matching our brand language, because Schneider has a pretty distinct brand language now that they've built up. Um, I had other main projects that I was working on by myself as well, while I was interning. So that was a good learning experience,
mm,
because it's a lot of in-house design. So you have to work with engineers and marketing a lot and go back and forth quite a lot.
mm.
So yeah,
Yeah, it sounds like a really good first experience.
yeah, definitely.
How has your role developed moving into a junior industrial designer role?
um, it I unfortunately, even though I'm actually not part of that team at the moment, it's a bit strange. I went to a graduate role, but I've been thrown around in the company in order to learn about it more and get a bit more hands-on experience with other stuff,
Mm,
just to expand my skill set.
yep.
So right now I'm mainly focused around like the installation side of the products.
Yep.
So around like the users and end user, which has been a bit interesting.
Mm,
So it's kind of departure from the design side at the moment, but it's been a bit of a more user research side, I would say.
mm,
Um, and it was good because when I was an intern there, I was able to use Schneider as my uh, client
mm,
for my end of year project that I did last year. So I was able to like kind of mix work and job. I mean, mix work and uni together, which was good.
mm, yeah.
Um, and it's taught me a lot compared to just this uni theory, but being in the real world experience, because you can't really beat that most of the time.
Yeah, it's always good to
Um,
get that experience.
yeah, and just seeing what's the differences between like actually applying your knowledge in the real world,
Mm,
especially in a big company like this, because it's Schneider's massive.
mm,
Even though most people have never heard of them, um, and they're everywhere, and you wouldn't expect it, but they're literally everywhere. And it's interesting because like you have to deal with so many aspects with dealing with like engineers and then what the marketing people want, and even if there's budget for certain projects, because we run through like a ton of ideas and some of them never get taken off. So
mm.
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it
um
sounds like a good entry into the field, bud.
Definitely.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky to get this in Adelaide of all places as well.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Adelaide as a design prospect location?
um to be honest, I feel like it's good for a uni.
Mm,
The student culture is really good here, and the community is really tight knit because it's such a small place.
mm,
So everyone pretty much knows each other.
Mm.
But some of the job prospects for graduates is a little bit slim just due to the scarcity of like either design consultancies or actual jobs going around from like manufacturing places. It's not really that much.
Yep.
And then it's because there's so many graduates coming out, there's like the competition is really high.
Sounds like I had a similar experience in Brisbane. Like we have a lot of jobs in Brisbane, but there's also so many graduates that yeah, it's just ridiculously competitive.
Yeah. So like you'll see something that's like 50 to 100 applicants, and it's just it really kind of turns you off a little bit sometimes. But yeah, I always feel bad when like the years below me would ask for advice, and then they're like, should I stay here for a job? I'm like, I would try maybe branch out a bit if you are not lucky, or because with Adelaide, I feel like it's who you know most of the time. Like you need that strong contact baseline.
Yep.
That's because the only reason I got my internship was I was able to connect with my boss through LinkedIn, and because he came to my end of year exhibition and was talking to my lecturers about me. Otherwise, I don't think I would have got that. Really, or anything. I don't know. I'm not really too sure what else would have gotten, because most of the people I know have gotten jobs through who they know most of the time, or who the lecturers know.
Yeah, so, Adelaide's a nice place, but I was actually looking to move there a while back. I was potentially to design. I don't know, but I know the jobs are pretty limited. But
yeah,
I like Adelaide. It's a nice little city.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really nice. It's so easy to get around. Everything's really close. And it's cheaper compared to Melbourne or Sydney.
Yeah.
But yeah, just some of the job prospects sometimes a bit limited. That's all.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Especially as a graduate, like I've moved from Brisbane to Newcastle.
Yeah.
You know, just because I couldn't get a job in Brisbane, so I was like, I'll just take whatever job I get, kind of thing. And like sometimes you have to do that. I feel like as a graduate.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, how have you found the move from university into professional life?
I would say it's pretty not smooth sailing, but like it's good to be able to apply some of the stuff you've learned from uni, but it's also a lot that you don't know at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I feel like even listening to some of the other podcasts, it's like people talk about how some graduates don't when they come out of uni, they don't know all these things that the employers expect them to know. But it's good. Like my boss, I pretty much had to teach myself a completely new 3D modeling program on the job.
Which software?
Because I got taught SolidWorks in uni, but then I had to learn Rhino at work.
Rhino, yeah. I'm learning Rhino at the moment.
So it's because Rhino's a surface modeling software most of the time, so it's a bit of a departure from SolidWorks. So stuff like that, like he's like, he didn't really care that I didn't know it. He's just like, yeah, just teach yourself on the job, which is nice. And just like, it's a lot of a learning experience most of the time, constant like skill, learning new skills and stuff, because in Schneider, we sketch, but like in uni, you kind of get taught to do like pretty sketches sometimes.
Yeah.
You do like pretty concept sketches, but most of our design team, we just do quick ideation sketches and then move straight to CAD.
Yeah.
Because it's the products we're working on are very technical based with like, it's like light switches, and it's very like very, very technical. So it's a bit easier to move into CAD and then just get a presentation knocked out to show what we're talking about. But as much of the sketching we do is just in between us as a design team. We don't really show sketches to anyone else most of the time.
Same in my job. I feel like it's not as, unless you're working like a consultancy where you're presenting ideas or a very much I don't know, visual based job. I feel like it's pretty limited, the need for presentation sketching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel like it's a bit more of a consultancy thing. Even though I have no experience in that yet. But yeah, it's also interesting to learn what in-house design is like. especially in a big company like this. It's like and because there's design teams in Schneider all across the world. There's like a European one, the American one, Asian one. It's interesting seeing what all of those design teams do in the same company compared to us as well. And like we talk with each other as well, so that's good. You kind of share all the knowledge around. And sometimes it's difficult because so many people want an opinion on a project in the company, and it gets a bit messy sometimes. But that's just how it is. It's a bit like just company politics with some stuff.
Yeah, company politics is one of the biggest realizations for me about professional life. Is like sometimes more than like the work.
Definitely. Yeah. So yeah, it's just a lot of that coming out of uni. It's a big learning experience. With the whole project management side, and like you learn how to manage stuff in uni with like your timelines and stuff, but it's a different thing when you're working full time, I feel like.
You've got like multiple projects on the go and you're trying to keep track of small details from each one.
Yeah. Making multiple presentations on different things. It's interesting.
Yeah, I feel like the best thing about moving straight into this kind of role, like a big in-house role out of uni, is you just learn so much so quickly. Like every day you kind of feel like you're just like trial by fire. You know what I mean? Like you make or break kind of thing. Like you're making a lot of mistakes. You're learning a lot every day. Like there's constantly just things you're learning, and I feel like maybe you learn a lot more than if you go into like directly into a consultancy where like you kind of disconnected from the projects in a way. So I feel like in a way it is good to go into those in-house roles out of uni.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, my boss pretty much threw me into the deep end. He gave me like 2 projects straight off the bat that I just had to like come back with presentations like a month later, and show them, and do those concurrently. Because in my internship I started full time and then went to part time while doing my last year of uni. And yeah, he just threw me straight in to just see what I could do really. Try and test me a little bit, because it was also good to learn how Rhino works, and all that, and how the company works with, because you had to there's so many brand guidelines in Schneider as well. You have to learn all those, so that it's like good branding exercises and stuff like that as well. So
yeah, I focus because I'm in signage manufacturing, so we go into a lot of like specific brand guidelines for like Woolworths, Kmart, all like the big companies, but it's more from like a graphic design perspective. So I feel like brand guidelines with a 3D product would be even more complicated, because like
definitely
more details will break the brand guidelines.
It's meant to be like, if you can, I mean, it's like every company is like, if like Dyson, you can tell it's a Dyson product. So it's meant to be like, if you see a Schneider anything, you can tell it's a Schneider product, even if you don't know what the company really is. But
okay. How do you see the design scene in Adelaide? Do you think it's something that's going to develop in the future, or do you think it's kind of just plodding along the way it is?
I think it's going to be developed. At least I hope so. I mean, the companies that have been here, I don't know too much about in terms of like the design consultancies, but like what we're doing at Schneider is pretty interesting. My boss is really trying to. He originally is from Adelaide, and he did his study here as well. So he's really trying to push innovation here as well. And there's I know a lot of people, most of the people in Adelaide leave and then come back and bring all that knowledge. Like a lot of my lecturers left to like different countries and then came back. So I hope that happens here. I would love to do that here. I'd love to go away and then bring that knowledge back and then push the design scene more in Adelaide, because it's a bit far behind compared to other states. I feel like, in terms of just the not the quality, but maybe just like the overall like innovation that's coming out of Adelaide sometimes, with like who's around to actually push it, because I feel like not many of the consultancies are working with companies that would allow that potentially. or have big enough companies in order to push the innovation.
Mm.
It's more around a lot of the stuff here is more around like either outdoor furniture, like urban environment stuff, or sculptures,
Mm.
big manufacturing focus as well. So not really, maybe other than Schneider or Clipsal, where we push some boundaries with some stuff.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bit hard to tell. I feel like it is to a certain point, but maybe not enough at the moment.
Okay.
It's getting there slowly,
Yeah.
and I hope maybe our generation could probably push it a bit further.
Yeah.
Later on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's the same kind of with Brisbane. Like Brisbane, it's probably more developed, I feel like, maybe than Adelaide, in terms of design. I'm not really sure, but
Yeah.
but what I really liked about Adelaide was it's very artistic. There's a lot of you know, attention to detail, even in just like architecture everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I arrived at the airport, I was just blown away by like even just the small details in the airport.
Yeah.
Compared to like Brisbane, where it's just like a white box. But yeah, but no, yeah. I mean, who knows? I think it's good. People like you and people like me who are in those places where we're coming into that new generation, if we try and push the design in the cities we're in. You know, like obviously Sydney and Melbourne, they have a big design scene, but sometimes, you know, pushing for those smaller cities to kind of get up to the level and, you know, help drive that. It's good to see. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, cool. Moving on from that, congratulations for Graduate of the Year in NT and South Australia.
Thank you. Thanks, man.
Yeah. It must be very it must give you some good self-confidence to like know that you're rewarded for your efforts at university in that way. Like
Yeah.
were you happy to see that, and like, you know, thrilling to get some recognition?
Yeah, definitely. After like all the late nights, I think it's
Yeah.
definitely, I feel like it's worth it. Yeah, it's good. And then it gets your name out there a little bit and gets you to connect with more people in the industry. So yeah, I feel like I feel grateful for like having that award given to me. Because yeah, I always try to like push myself a lot with like with the work I'm doing. So it's good to get recognition sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You do you find the move into professional life, what are the positive negatives you found? Like, are there anything that you feel like you didn't expect moving into that you maybe had like expectations from university that didn't live up to it?
I wouldn't say there's anything negative really. I feel like because it's hard to put negatives in when you're just starting off, because I feel like everything's a learning experience.
Definitely.
So you can't really take it as a negative almost. It's more just even if you make a mistake, it's still like a good learning experience. But maybe I think it's probably the biggest difference or negative is probably just like how sometimes uni doesn't really fully prepare you sometimes. Doesn't give you, it gives you the tools, but like it doesn't, at least my uni a little bit, it doesn't give you the full range of like what you could expect in terms of experience, because my uni course structure is based around it's like 3 years bachelor's, and then you can do either an honors or a graduate diploma as like another year after that, which I did. But if you just do the 3 years bachelor's, you don't really get that much industry experience at all, if any actually. Unless you find it yourself. So I think it's important with graduates to like find it as soon as possible, because uni won't do it for you. So it's important to find that and then take everything as a learning experience, even if you think it might be negative, it probably yes isn't in the long run. Exactly. Even with the thing I'm doing now, I'm not really doing anything really design related to what I was doing like last year, but I'm just taking it as a learning experience at the moment. It's a bit of a transition period, if you want to say that.
Sometimes it's really important to learn that kind of foundation of even understanding the organization. Like, I'm guessing that's what you're kind of doing.
Yeah.
Like when I first started, I was on the manufacturing floor, like working with the guys, learning how each part of the process is working, on the floor before I started designing for it. And I feel like it really gave me a good idea of what's going on and helped me, conceive the process and understand what, like the way that it's operating. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's good to see it from every aspect sometimes, because then you get caught in a little bit of a bubble if you just stick to one thing.
Exactly.
Which can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. What tips would you give to graduates kind of moving out of university into the field? Like, part of the reason I wanted to get you on is like we're both in that situation where we've just got our first positions, and I feel like a lot of graduates are kind of in that space where they're not sure what they should do, not sure what job they should take. Like, what advice would you give to them?
I would try just go for like, even if it's like something you might not like, just go for it and try it out. Like experiment with what you do and don't like, because then you can kind of refine it later. Because it's unless you really know in uni, I like when I came out of uni, I did not know what I wanted to really go into. Was like UX UI or furniture design or straight like just consumer goods. I had no clue really. It's a bit of like finding it out through actually like testing it out. Like I had a little tiny work experience here at a place called Jam Factory, which is mostly like furniture design and like glass making and stuff like that. And that was really interesting. That was really good at showing me like I actually do enjoy that quite a lot as well. So and it's also kind of testing out what you think you would be doing in the future of your career as well. Because you should use this time when you actually have the time to test it out, instead of later when you're a bit stuck in one avenue. But it's also kind of dependent on what jobs you can really get, and what's available. But yeah, and then otherwise networking is like the most important thing in the world. I feel like it's like contacts, at least in Australia, it's one of the biggest things. Like just getting your foot in the door and like getting your name out there is a really good thing. And then probably another thing is probably just getting I would say to start your portfolio really early as well. Because if I look at my first portfolio I did, I was like, I don't know why I did that. Like, and then like you do so many iterations and then you finally get to something that you're actually really proud of. So it's good to like start really early on something like that, even if you're in like your second or third year. Yeah, it's good to just start and just put something together so you have something. Because if you don't have any, if an employer comes up to you, oh, can I see your portfolio? And like, oh, I don't have one. Then yeah, it's going to be a bit of the egg on your face there. So it's important to get those types of things started when you feel like you have at least some work to show. Because I know a couple of guys in my uni who are like second year already have like an internship, or have a job going because they just put their name out there and talk to a lot of people at like either like networking events or stuff like that, or just asking the lecturers if there's anything going around. Because it's important. It's like as soon as you get that experience, you're already a step ahead, really. And then when you graduate and you want to go into that like first full-time role and you already have something under your belt, it's good. Definitely. So, and then maybe other than that is probably try and teach yourself a lot of things outside of uni. Uni is not going to teach you everything. It's good to like expand yourself into different avenues, like maybe VR 3D modeling or stuff like that. That's coming up recently. Teaching yourself how to get really good at Illustrator. Maybe you want to go into packaging design. It's stuff like that. You kind of need to find out what you're good at and what you really want to do as well. So yeah, because I know I don't really like doing UI design, even though that's really big right now. But I don't really find myself getting any really enjoyment out of that, so I kind of avoid it most of the time. I can do it, but like it's something I don't really find myself enjoying that much compared to like physical products. It's a bit more hands-on to me. So yeah.
I've tried to go and get into it so many times, but every time I'm just like, then I'm giving up industrial design. It's like what I actually enjoy.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like more money or like actually enjoy and passionate about the job. Like that's the way you got to think about it. That's
Exactly.
the way
Yeah.
I think about it personally, and that's why I
Yeah.
haven't done that route. Yeah.
Yeah. Same for me.
Yeah.
I have a bit more passion in, yeah, definitely the true like industrial design aspect of things instead of just, yeah, the UI design stuff. But yeah, even though if it does pay more, but yeah.
Yeah. I think it is good to know anyway. Like a lot of the skills are transferable really from industrial design. So I suppose it is good to have that, even just the knowledge of Figma and programs like that. Just so if you are in your role, you can offer that to the organization.
Yeah, at least around like all the user experience side stuff. Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would say as well, I think take whatever role you can, because I think when I graduated, I was very I was thinking, oh, which job do I want to take? Do I want to get a job in a consultancy straight away, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the time they just won't employ you for one, because they've got very they're a lot smaller than a lot of the big companies, and they don't necessarily have the money to take on a graduate and know that they're going to be taking on someone that they're going to have to train up, because there's obviously going to be a lot of skills that they don't have from uni necessarily, and there's going to be a gap there. So sometimes like you just won't get the job, and if you wait for that job, you might never get it. So like in that time, you might as well get a different job, and then when you go to get that consultancy job, you'll have all this experience under your belt already. So I really think that any job, as long as it has an industrial design title or even a similar, field to industrial design in the design field, it's not going to be a negative experience.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you gotta always treat it as a positive. And
exactly.
it's always like just an addition to your skill set, really.
Yeah, you mentioned networking and how it's very important. I met you on LinkedIn, and I feel like LinkedIn is the best thing. But would you recommend that every young industrial designer gets into LinkedIn and kind of gets their profile going and gets active in the community?
Yeah, I think so. It's almost like professional Facebook. It's like you have and it's seen as like everyone's going to be professional on the platform, and it's seen as like a place where you talk about job opportunities and what you're doing for work and what your skills are and stuff like that. So it's definitely good because, well, one, you can find jobs on LinkedIn pretty easily. Jobs are posted there all the time. And then two, you can connect with people who you think you would never meet, and just strike up a conversation really easily by messaging them. So it's definitely a useful tool, I think. I mean, I got my first job through that, so it's definitely a good thing to have.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I think a lot of the people I've found through the podcast I've found through just reaching out on LinkedIn. And like sometimes, like, I mean, you live in Adelaide, I live in Newcastle, and you can start like a professional friendship, and like build a community around that. When in that future, when you really need to know someone, you're like, oh, I actually know someone in Adelaide. It can be very very beneficial to the future.
Exactly.
And like I'd recommend to anyone who doesn't have a LinkedIn profile, at least get something going.
Yeah, definitely.
What skills do you see as the most important to refine outside of work, as a graduate, or even just in that space when you're waiting to go into professional work?
I would say, I mean, you can always work on your sketching skills. You can always work on your 3D modeling skills. It's pretty that's pretty self-explanatory. But a lot of the stuff, at least in my job, it's a lot of collaboration skills and just like knowing how to work with people. Just like knowing how to talk to people. Really, I mean, you do group work in uni, but it's completely different in the workplace when you're talking to people who've never studied design or never like ever really experienced what an industrial designer is. So it's important to know how to communicate to people your ideas and what you're thinking, because otherwise you're never going to get to a point where your ideas might just go through to the next stage. So definitely, and networking can help with that. You can practice with people, talking to people. I would say also, maybe. Yeah, those technical skills are probably good to keep up. If you're not finding a job and you're kind of in a stuck space, it's good to keep those up while you're looking for one, because you'll probably slowly lose them if you don't keep them up. Especially the software side of stuff, because you can, you always remember it slightly, but this constant practice with it is always the best thing. And just pushing yourself to learn new things with the software or a new technique. Like I taught myself recently how to use Grasshopper and Rhino.
I want to learn Grasshopper next year.
Yeah, so that's another big learning curve. And also like upping like keyshot stuff, like keyshot renderings, stuff like that is always good. Like just like skills like that you can always build upon. Other than that, yeah, maybe some like you can probably look into some new like design research techniques. Last year I looked into a lot of like co-design stuff, so focusing on stuff like that, and just like expanding your knowledge a little bit, even some manufacturing techniques that you might not know. Because I've heard a lot of things on this podcast that I did not know about, from like Neil Davison and stuff like that.
Definitely. I took his advice like way back when he was first on my podcast, and just started researching manufacturing techniques, and watching LinkedIn learning courses on different processes, CNC, injection molding and stuff like that. And like, obviously you're not going to get the same amount of experiences if you were on the job doing that, learning about that process and designing for it. But I think having that kind of knowledge fresh in your mind and just in the back of your mind can really be beneficial.
Definitely, yeah. At least you know of it. You don't have to have like a full your full mind wrapped around it, but at least you know of it when someone's talking about it.
Exactly. It's like today I was like, they were like, just chem set that bolt, and I was like, what is chem setting? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, it's using chemicals to like set it in the wool. But it's like you wouldn't know that unless you learned it on the job. So there's things you're always gonna not know. And I think that being understanding of that as a workplace, that graduates aren't going to know everything, is sometimes really important.
Definitely, yeah. There's a lot of learning curves with being a graduate most of the time, especially in places where they focus on manufacturing and it's very technical. Even in Schneider, even though it was technical, we weren't really part of the manufacturing too much, but it's still technical due to like electrical standards and stuff like that, and learning about why like the angles of light switches and all that stuff. You have to learn a lot about that, and electrical mechanical design. But
cool. Where do you see the future of your career? Like, what are your long-term prospects as a designer? Do you think about that, or do you just kind of take it day by day?
I do think about it. I mean, I feel like one day, I was talking to some of my friends about this, like maybe one day I would love to open my own business, potentially. If maybe 10 years later I might think differently, but or however long, 15 years later. But yeah, that's one prospect. I would feel like I would love to bring something back to Adelaide and try and like push that a bit more, like we were talking about. But I feel like I definitely want to explore, like, well, I'm working in-house at the moment, but I'd love to work for like a design consultancy, experience that type of work environment where it's a lot different, and you're working on a lot of different projects and different clients, and they have different set of rules and set of needs and stuff like that. So I'd love to do that, but potentially maybe even go overseas, and experience it in a different, because Australian design is completely different to other countries, like European or even in the United Kingdom as well. But yeah, I would love to do that as well. Just like experience different work cultures, and just like build out that knowledge, and potentially even come back and then see what happens.
When I was younger, I had those aspirations that I wanted to work overseas, but like now I've you know, my partner here and like a bit of a
Yeah.
family of my dogs. And I feel
Yeah.
like I'm kind of settled in Australia now, and I'm kind of, I don't know, like starting the podcast, I feel like I've become almost invested in Australian design in a way.
Yeah.
And like now I'm kind of, I don't know, driven to be a designer in Australia and to kind of like keep bringing up the design in Australia, because I think we have a lot of really good design here. Like I've so
Yeah,
many
we do.
talented people I've had on the podcast that have been amazing to talk to, and you know, yeah, let's keep developing it. Mm,
Definitely. Yeah, it's just about getting it out there and known what we can do as a country
exactly.
in terms of design, and it's good to learn from other countries as well what they're doing with their design scene and how like sometimes I feel like the Australian design scene is connected to a certain point. Like
Mm,
um people know each other, but because it's such a big country, they don't really talk to each other as much as
mm,
at least in my experience.
yeah.
Especially in Adelaide, we're very like in a bubble most of the
Mm,
time. Um,
yeah.
and then where you see like other places, they're really connected. The different either the different studios or stuff like that. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would love to go somewhere and then just like bring that knowledge back,
Mm,
and then just like push the Australian design scene a bit more,
yeah.
um, and just keep improving it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've never had the luxury of living in a city that has a lot of design events. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
me
pretty
either.
disconnected, but now I live in Newcastle. Like on Thursday, I'm going to what's his name? Chris Hart's event. He's the head designer at Breville. So
Okay,
that should
yeah,
be pretty
cool.
cool. It's like a little
Yeah, that'd be
design
cool.
like networking event. But like just having access to that kind of thing to go to is awesome. Because
Yeah,
in Brisbane,
exactly.
it's like I always see these things pop up in other states, and I'm always like, oh, I wish I could go. Yeah.
Exactly, like Melbourne Design Week or
Oh,
something like
Melbourne
that.
Design Week. Yeah.
Yeah, like you just wish I was in your city.
Yeah.
Like we
Not
bet,
not
yeah,
too, you're only 45 minutes by plane to Melbourne?
yeah, yeah,
It's not far.
yeah. It's not too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, still, but
Yeah.
yeah, in Adelaide, it's very similar. It's hardly anything
Mm.
going on unless maybe something like a design event is happening at my uni, or there's one networking event randomly by like
Yep.
the DIA,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
yeah. Other than that, there's hardly anything going on,
Mm.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a bit discouraging to graduates when it's like they want to like experience and know more people. But like it's hard because it's like there's not enough networking events or
Mm.
enough chances to get to know anyone because there's nothing happening.
Yeah.
um, I wish that was more of a thing here. Um,
Mm.
just on the same like level almost as the bigger cities.
Mm. Yeah, I'm looking to start doing networking events through the podcast. So
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
it'd
Yeah.
probably be in Sydney, so it might be a bit of a hike for you, but you know, just getting everyone together to all talk about design and kind of just get more, you know, more networking collaboration between different consultancies, different people. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
yeah, that sounds really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, moving on from there, I've just got some interesting tech questions to talk about. I haven't mentioned it yet on the podcast, but recently Apple's released the Apple Vision Pro.
Mm, yeah,
Are you up to date with
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
What do you think about it? Do you think it's going to revolutionize the world, or do you think it's just going to be more tech waste that we'll forget about in a couple of years?
I feel like it's a step in a direction where it's revolutionizing some aspects of it. I mean, there's net positive and negatives to all of it. It's like you're stuck in like VR world where you're like in front of a screen,
Hmm.
even more than you already are.
Yeah.
Um, and you kind of disconnected from everything, even with the inclusion of like when people come to your vision, like you can see them and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But it's just all the advancements in like all the eye tracking stuff, and all that. It's interesting and it's cool from a tech perspective
Hmm.
and how it's innovating in a space where there's already so much going on, with like the Oculus and
Hmm.
all that stuff. But I know it's very Black Mirror to me,
Yeah.
where it's just like you're filming your kids with your headset on, and you're capturing a memory, but you're still disconnected from that memory in the real life. You're not really. It's almost like the same thing as like everyone like recording a concert on their phone.
Yeah.
To a certain extent. I mean, it's good in the direction where like it could be useful for work from home, or getting that aspect where you feel like you're in the office because you have this on and you're in this VR world, but it's still a bit of that disconnection from the real world where you're just like you're losing those aspects. Even though it's very cool. It looks pretty cool, like all the aspects of it. Maybe not the price, but other than that, yeah.
I'll sell my car and buy this headset.
Yeah.
Well, are you a believer in? Are you concerned about the future of technology in this way, like with products like this? Are you apprehensive to maybe the effect they could have on the world?
Maybe in terms of like we're already like so attached to our devices already. It's a bit crazy. Like we're so reliant on everything, where it's a bit scary that you might become reliant on a VR headset to like experience anything really. It might get to that point, but you don't really know that. But because we're so reliant on our phones now that it's like you couldn't imagine not having a phone with you going anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where you need your VR goggles to do anything, but I would hope not. But yeah, it's a bit scary. But there's all these other positives with it, even with our world with industrial design, like this, like if you could show a client something in VR and get them like if they're all the way across the world and you can't send them a prototype, you can just get them in VR potentially if they have one. And just get them to look at it in VR and then get the scale and what it's going to look like in real life and stuff. So there's aspects of like that in terms of our profession, and all the gravity sketch and 3D like VR modeling, which is really interesting as well. I've had a go at that as well. But in terms of like the actual life aspect of it, it's a bit scary, I feel like, in some aspects. I think I have a VR headset, but it's I use it mainly for like gravity sketch or gaming, really, more like entertainment. But when it comes into the realm of like you're watching movies or you're only doing work in that, it's a bit scary.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of on the same boat as you. I feel like in our field, a lot of people, because industrial design is so technology based and we're always up to date with the latest trends, so many people can be kind of just like, yes, any new technology, let's do it kind of thing in our field. But like I'm on the side of like, as designers, we have a place to be sort of gatekeepers and of like what is good for humanity. Like not necessarily dictate what is good for humanity, but have some sort of oversight to think, is the designs we're making or is the designs around us, are they going to benefit the long-term aspects? Like as people who are designed to be human-centric, are we making the right decisions to bring about that future?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a definitely big responsibility in order to like push that type of stuff. Like, I mean, you look at even like the stuff like that Dyson's doing with their headphones, the air purifier stuff. It's like stuff like that as well. Like, I mean, it's for a reason with the like air pollution and stuff, but then there's all these other things around COVID, which I mean, it wasn't initially designed when COVID was a thing, but yeah, it's like all those, like you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what's the world's going to look like. So it's important to think about what you're putting out in the world sometimes. And even I mean, and sustainability is a big thing with that as well. Like, do we need more stuff? Do we need more devices that you can just like use and then throw away like 2 years later?
And we're in the perfect situation for that because we design the stuff that gets thrown away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, I mean, working in signage, it's like, for me, it's like kind of torturous to my soul in some ways because I see all this plastic and, plastic aluminium signage be built and then like a few years later, like new logo comes out and they just chuck it all down and build something else.
Yeah,
Even just like what the current thing we're doing, we're just building over the original sign with new sign. Like we're not even getting rid of the old one. We're just like cladding over the outside of it. And it's just like, like why not repurpose the materials? Like, I don't know, why not
yeah,
find a way to
exactly.
do it? Like instead we just completely remove it. And it's
Yeah, it's annoying because it's like
it's not viable, half the time.
no, but yeah, normally that's the easiest route most
Yeah.
of the time, and it's like it's normally like uh if it's easy, then they'll people will do it.
Mm,
So it's hard. It's probably the best thing is like trying to make those sustainable practices easier,
mm,
more like accessible, and getting that really pushed. Otherwise, it would just never happen. It would just keep going and going like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like for example, the sign, like, would it be worth taking the sign down, taking it all the way back to our factory in another state,
exactly. Yeah,
putting new vinyl on it, taking it all the way back? No, but it's way cheaper just to post a new one. But
yeah.
just because it's cheaper doesn't necessarily mean it's the right decision.
No, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What are you most excited for in the future of our field? Like, where the next stage of design is? How old are you?
23.
23. See, I'm 24. So we're like that. We're the next stage, moving into the field. Are you excited? What are the things you're most excited about for the coming years?
Um, Probably like I mean, there's so much technological advancement happening
Mm,
like around us, like this in 3D printing and yeah,
mm,
like AR, VR, all that stuff. I mean, if you want to put AI into that as well, I guess there's some aspects that are good to it into our profession, but not all of it. Um, but yeah, it is. I would say in terms of yeah that and just like how interconnected the world is now
mm,
with being able to have access to so much information from like almost anywhere. Definitely puts like you see people like teenagers now have they just know so many things
mm,
where back then even when I was a teenager I did not know that many things, that much information at all. So it's good like you can having that almost I mean especially in Australia where kind of industrial design is a kind of trained as like jack of all trades
mm.
almost you can kind of do a little bit of everything.
Yep.
um and it's even more now where you just have so much information going around. um so I feel like that's a really good thing, and being able to like yeah do what we're doing, just have like these relationships from across like even I mean we're in the same country but it's different states.
I mean, it's what, like a few thousand kilometers away?
Yeah, it's still pretty far.
Yeah.
um so I feel like that's really good,
Mm,
and yeah you just have access to so many more things now. Like you can it's 3D printing is way more accessible. Yeah, VR is becoming way more accessible.
mm,
um just all those things are becoming way like is this much more ease of access where you don't need so much money or time to like invest into things like that,
mm,
which would just everyone's skill set would just keep growing and growing and growing.
mm,
um and I feel like now with all the information you just get people coming out with completely new ideas because they just know more.
mm,
um I mean we don't in uni we don't get taught some of the more like traditional stuff like some of the manufacturing techniques that might be used here in Australia or
mm,
stuff like that, which is a bit sad.
mm,
Where we're kind of losing some of that a little bit, but still the newer stuff that's coming out I feel like we have a bit of an edge over.
mm.
And like I saw a job the other day that's I haven't seen something like this where like they ask they require you to have experience in Gravity Sketch.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
So I thought that was cool. It's like yeah, people in companies are like recognizing that type of stuff is important.
Mm,
And it's probably becoming a bigger thing now.
mm,
um and yeah you need to know like 3D printing and all those techniques, and like you wouldn't have people like 10 or 15 years ago
mm,
would have like the baseline level of that. Now it's just like everyone at uni should know that.
mm.
Those techniques and stuff, so like right off the bat. But yeah I think it's probably just the ability like the interconnectedness of everything.
Mm.
And yeah technology definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm really excited for the future of remote work for one. Like
Yeah
in some ways you could say living in Australia is a limitation on your career because you're confined to Australia from, a work perspective, realistically. But at the same time, like that's not even necessarily true anymore because of the way the
Mm.
world's becoming. Like we could work in, I mean, I don't want to really work in VR, but we could work in VR with someone overseas and be in
Yeah,
the room with them, sketching in 3D and communicating our ideas. And right now, maybe that's not as much of a reality, but 5 years from now, or even a few years from now, who knows? Like maybe I could take a job remotely overseas and be working with someone overseas and it'd be completely plausible.
yeah.
That's probably the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It might be industry standard by then. We might
Yeah,
have to do
exactly.
something like that.
Yeah.
Where like, because there's so many global companies now that have offices all around the world. So it's
Mm.
important to like that collaboration aspect is just much more easier, definitely
Yeah.
now.
Like even before COVID, I couldn't have a podcast where I interview people from America, Europe, anywhere
Yeah,
easily. Like it'd be such a pain. You'd have to somehow set up some sort of, I mean, you could use Skype, but it's just not really a practice.
no,
Whereas now, like it's common practice for people just to open up Zoom and have a chat. And it's accepted in the community.
yeah, definitely.
Mm. It makes the world so much more closer together, even though we're so far away.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a good thing to come out of that, definitely.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Henry. It's been really great to have a chat and yeah, meet you in person.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ryan.
Yeah. Thanks so
Really
much for
is.
coming on. I'll talk to you soon anyway.
Yeah, cool.
See you later, man. Bye.
Thanks so much.